Welcome to the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen, covering the week that was in professional wrestling. And hello, and welcome everybody to another edition of the Juice Box. We had one hell of a week this past week. AEW Revolution, the pretty intense SmackDown episode. We had a decent Raw episode. We had a strong episode of Dynamite on Wednesday following Revolution. A lot of great wrestling. A lot of things to discuss today. I'm going to get to as much as I can and hopefully keep it within an hour. But let's get the other stuff out of the way. Juicy Steen on Twitter. Juicy Wrestling Closet on Instagram. You can also find the Juice Box, Apple Podcasts, juicysteen.podbean.com, Spotify, and apparently this is the last week that you can find the Juice Box on Google Podcasts. Google Podcasts apparently is no more. Beginning, I believe, next week, so RIP. But, you know, the Juice Box is other spots, so hopefully you guys can still listen to it even if you are a Google Podcast connoisseur. The time is now up for you. And find the Juice Box somewhere else, so that's why I like putting it out there. Additionally, and, you know, we'll get into some WrestleMania stuff throughout this episode, referencing it and such. But by that week, which I WrestleMania week is always a huge week leading up to the event and the weekend, now that it's a, 2-night affair. But specifically for WrestleMania week, I'm looking to bring a lot of content. So a part of that, I'm going to be, branching out a little bit more with where I distribute this podcast, and I'll dive into that whenever I'm done. I believe I discussed it last week in an intro to the Revolution prediction show with Josh Eisenberg, which was a great show. We bantered for probably 50 minutes, but it was a lot of information spouted off there. Normally we kind of go for a bit longer, but we really nailed some topics there. Some good stuff for the Revolution pre-show, prediction show, whatever. It was a pre-show, well, But I just think that I'm going to be, there's another way to distribute this podcast. I'm going to let everybody know as I get more work done on that, as the interns are hard at work behind the scenes, the social media team, the editing team, of course. Everybody here, the owner, host, social media, editing, the tech, PR, sound, the intern, all will be working around the clock, nonstop to distribute this podcast to everybody out there. Additionally, let's get into some WrestleMania week stuff. I recently recorded an episode of the SIP series. Another incarnation of that SIP series will be airing that week during WrestleMania week. I believe it will be airing the Monday of WrestleMania week. So be on the lookout for that. I will not say who the guest is just yet, but they have a presence during WrestleMania weekend. As a fan, somewhat. So I'm not going to really divulge too much. I really would like to get to that week and then kind of lay out the week and have everybody kind of be interested, see what's going on throughout the whole week. We're going to be doing a triple threat theater for WrestleMania week, which hopefully will be recorded very, very soon. And then, of course, we will have the WrestleMania prediction show. I'm thinking we're going to have 2 episodes, a night 1 and a night 2 show. So that's a lot of content to push out for that week. It's going to be a big week for the show. A lot more news regarding the show, distribution parts to discuss. Just a lot of stuff I'm kind of working on right now that I'm not going to divulge until we get closer. But WrestleMania week is always a huge deal, and the Juice Box is looking to elevate itself a little bit during WrestleMania week. So stay tuned. Spread the word to your friends. Get this pod out there. As always, like I said earlier, Juicy Steen on Twitter. I'm very active on there. That's where you can reach me and discuss anything you'd like about the show or just topics in general that I'm always on there tweeting, posting, what have you. Specifically on Instagram as well, Juicy Wrestling Closet started on March 2nd, this past Saturday. The hashtag 30 Days of Wrestling Tees is something that I like to participate in pretty much every year, where 30 straight days and you post a different wrestling shirt that you may own. And as a WCW pay-per-view connoisseur in the shirt game, that's where a lot of my posts lie, and I'll be putting forth a lot more of those going forward as we lead up to WrestleMania Night 1 and Night 2. So, WrestleMania week should be fun. And then, of course, as we get into WrestleMania week, probably a week or two out, I will put out, an idea of what I will be doing in regards to Philadelphia and what this podcast will be doing, where, what we might be trying to accomplish during that weekend. I have a plan laid out for some interesting and intriguing, different, diverse content that will be done during the weekend of WrestleMania and will be, of course, released after the fact. But I'm really excited to kind of get into that once we get closer. But, we're pretty damn close now. Revolution's over. Elimination Chamber's over. The next show is WrestleMania, So, yeah, let's get into the week that was. I don't know where to start. I don't know. Let's start with some random stuff. Dark Side of the Ring, Season 5. This is one of the, best overall documentary series that wrestling is involved with, if not the only. The first couple seasons were so good. They're all great. Some really heavy hitter episodes. Von Erichs, Screwjob, Randy Savage, Chris Benoit, New Jack, Owen Hart, Brian Pillman. A lot of intriguing stuff. This season, we are getting... these are the names. I'll name the first 4, and then I'm going to... what they're actually called. And then, because they actually have titles, because they're laid out in production and air date order. And then I'll reveal the other names that are going to be discussed. There's 10 topics for Dark Side of the Ring this season in particular. The Ballad of Earthquake, John Tenta, which I have not gotten to see yet. I do not have Vice cut the cord for cable, so I'm going to have to wait for it to come out on streaming. I'll be able to watch it there, which is fine, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. Looking forward to it. Big John Tenta guy. Loved Earthquake. I'm a WCW guy, so I loved Shark. I liked just John Tenta when he stopped being a ridiculous gimmick and said, I am not a Shark, I'm John Tenta. And it was just a unique way of portraying that character, but man, he was taken from us way too soon in, I believe, 2006, so that'll be a tough episode. Buff in the Bagwells, which will be all about Buff Bagwell, which I'm a huge fan of Buff Bagwell. The WCW ones, I can't get enough of. Terry Gordy, Final Flight of the Freebird, and then Saving Face, the Brutus Beefcake story. That will be another interesting topic as well. Additionally, Gentleman Chris Adams will be discussed. Sherry Martel will be discussed. Black Saturday, in which the World Wrestling Federation took over the WTBS slot that was home to Georgia Championship Wrestling for 12 years, which kind of began this competition between the two companies. So that'll be something. We also have Chris Colt, who I honestly am not familiar with. However, I've done a little research on him, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm not gonna kind of spoil it. If you want to go out of your way, check out Chris Colt on Wikipedia. There's a lot of information there, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they portray this and how they tell this story. I'm looking forward to it. I honestly have never heard of him and hadn't up until this season was announced. Harley Race and the Sandman, which the Sandman will be appearing in RWA in a week's time. Unfortunately, I will not be there, but nevertheless, it shall be a great episode. Great episode of Dark Side of the Ring, but a great, I was thrown off there, RWA show that they always have. I've been to the first 2 of the year, and I will not be there this time, but I'm hoping maybe the weekend of SmackDown in Pittsburgh, April 19th, that they do have one on the 20th. I'm actually not sure when, if they do have one, when it would be. I think it might be that weekend to coincide with SmackDown on Friday, so we'll see, but the Dark Side of the Ring, always a great, intriguing show, and even if you're not a fan of wrestling, you'll enjoy the show quite a bit. I've showed it to people that didn't really like wrestling or really was kind of unfamiliar with it, and they learned the stories, and it's just I think it personally a great series. So check it out if you can. If you have Vice cable company, check it out there. I believe they also come out on Hulu after a while, so check that out as well. Honestly, let's get into the WWE side of things. I'd like to save the Sting and Revolution and Dynamite, which had a lot of intriguing stuff, towards the end of this episode. So last SmackDown, last Friday, we were waiting with bated breath. What are they going to do? Earlier in the day, The Rock posted a 20-minute promo on Instagram, and in fact, it was like 16 minutes, and then he reposted it with 5 additional minutes. He cut down Pharaoh, Cody's dog. He cut down Cody. He cut down Seth. Just a great promo. And even though, some people were saying, why couldn't you do this on SmackDown? Well, not only did that promo on Twitter get over 6 million views, but they then went to SmackDown, and The Rock hit a 40-minute segment with Roman, acknowledging quite a bit, including The Rock acknowledging Roman Reigns, which I think is a huge deal. They challenged Cody and Seth to a tag match at WrestleMania Night 1. On Raw, Cody and Seth discussed it, but I think that both will be in attendance tonight on SmackDown, and we'll have the answer. I'm assuming they'll accept the challenge. Maybe some physicality. Seth Rollins did declare that he is medically cleared. He can wrestle. He's 100%, so good to hear. So we'll see what happens. They challenged Cody and Seth to a tag match. Night 1. If Cody and Seth win on Night 1, then Cody and Roman have their match on Night 2. Straight up. That's it. Title on the line. Here we go. If the Bloodline are victorious, if Rock and Roman are victorious, which is what I believe will happen, then Night 2, Cody Roman will be a, quote, Bloodline Rules match. The stipulation being, I would assume almost anything can happen. Probably no DQ, where you'll probably see every member of the Bloodline, like possible, like a Rikishi, literally everybody. But I would wager that you also get maybe a Kevin Owens, maybe a John Cena. You get people that Roman Reigns has beaten up and beaten down and decimated over this reign of his championship reign. I'm just thinking of an Attitude Era schmoz of just like people fighting on the outside, people fighting on the inside, people going through announce tables, and it all leading to Cody eventually winning the world title. It's just, I think the way they're going to do it, though, yes, the Bloodline Rules match will happen, meaning Cody and Seth will take the loss on night 1. And so, by the way, Drew and Seth will have their world title match on night 2, which is also intriguing. I'll get to that in a little bit as well. If, in fact, the Bloodline Rules match is going to happen and Cody and Seth take the loss, I think there's a chance there's a couple ways you could do it. Whether The Rock hits one of those guys with the move, the rock bottom or what have you, or cheats or whatever, and Roman gets the pin, or Roman wants to stack Cody and Seth, or one way or the other. I think it's going to piss off, Roman and Rock are going to win, but I think one of them are going to be a little upset or bothered by how the match went. And on night 2, let's say it's Roman who's pissed off. Roman didn't get what he wanted. I think Rock will try to help Roman in the main event, and Roman will push him away or something, and it'll trigger The Rock to help Cody win, finish the story. Rock is a babyface, Roman's still the massive heel, and we move forward. Or you could have The Rock take the win, he has the win, he hits the rock bottom, whatever. Roman gets the pin, Roman gets the win. Rock is kind of, what am I doing here? I did all the work and you got the win and I had to acknowledge you, and now you get a title match and it was supposed to be us with this match. And if that's the case, I see The Rock doing what he's been doing, whether it's his muscles, his thumb muscles not being up to par or whatever you want to think it is, to put up the one, acknowledge Roman Reigns, and then put the thumb out, whether he's meaning L as in loss or the thumb as in Solo Sikoa, use the Samoan Spike on Roman Reigns. And if that happens, Rock is still a mega heel. Roman gets the babyface turn. The double turn in the bloodline happens. And I think you set up Rock Roman for either WrestleMania next year. Some people might say, SummerSlam. But I don't see that at all. At SummerSlam. So the rumor right now is that SummerSlam will be announced here soon, and it will be announced in Cleveland, Ohio, which will be pretty cool. Something that I potentially will be able to attend, which will be really nice to do. I've never been to a... no, I have. I'm lying. I was at SummerSlam 2015 in New York, and I've been to a Royal Rumble, and I've been to WrestleManias. Never been to a Survivor Series, so that's one I'd like to check off. But outside of SummerSlam this year, the WrestleMania 41 location has not been announced yet, but it is very, very close to being announced, I believe, and hinted at by a council meeting where they were talking about an event that's going to bring a lot of revenue and people and tourists, and it's going to be WrestleMania 41, I would wager. So, WrestleMania 41 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. After all this time, I honestly, 5-6 years, it's been since, they first announced that. They first announced potentially Minneapolis is going to be, something to look at. They got the new building for the Vikings. Maybe this is it. This is what they're going to do. We don't know. And year after year after year passed, and COVID hit. Tampa got one. Dallas got one. LA got one. Philly got one. I think Vegas is in line for one. I think Atlanta is in line for one. London will get one within the next 5 years. And Nashville will probably get one within the next 5 or 10 years because they are getting a new building in 2027. So I would have the match back to Roman Rock. If Roman Rock does happen, which I think, look, they wanted, and even in storyline, they wanted it to happen this year in Philly. I think they have it next year at WrestleMania. Whether you set it up as such so soon, I don't know. But even if, as long as Rock and Roman have some sort of falling out at WrestleMania this year, I would wager that it's pretty safe to say or assume that Mania 41 will be where that happens next year for those two. So that's one portion of it. The other portion is Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins will go against Drew McIntyre on night 2. So here's so many different ideas here, and I'm not saying this is going to happen. Look, Josh Eisenberg and myself have had PLE predictions for months now for WWE, and quite a few of them we have said, look, Damian Priest, this seems to be the time where he might cash in here. And even if we never thought he would win, we were like, oh, well, he'll cash in. Still hasn't happened. But with a 2-night WrestleMania where both champions are going to be fighting a night 1 in a tag match, and then night 2, not only will Seth Rollins be defending his title after potentially being quote-unquote injured again or vulnerable from the night before, but Cody Rhodes potentially, and Roman Reigns potentially, could be in a huge Bloodline Rules, no DQ match. After the match, during the match, Priest could cash in. There's just a lot with Damian Priest, I think, leading up to it. But I do not want to see Damian Priest cash in on Gunther. That cannot happen. Gunther really needs to be involved at WrestleMania with a one-on-one match, and I think that's just how it has to be. Let's dive in. So we did SmackDown. Let's go to Raw. Drew McIntyre was just unbelievable. You know, he's just unbelievable. And great on the mic. He's been doing a lot of great things. So Raw, we had the Cody Seth thing. Gunther, though, has a match, destroys Dom Mysterio. Throughout the night, you know, Gable, Ricochet, Sami Zayn, Bronson Reed, a lot of these guys get involved either in ring or backstage. They talk to Adam Pearce about, you know, I deserve an IC title match. I should be at WrestleMania. I want a match at WrestleMania. I want a match with Gunther. I deserve the IC title opportunity. What's happening with that? And he basically, Adam Pearce was like, look, next week on Raw, there will be a 6-person gauntlet match, and the winner of that will take on Gunther at WrestleMania. This should be amazing. This is going to be 6 guys, and I'm going to say it takes at least an hour. Dare I say hour and, I don't know, hour and a little bit, like maybe hour 15. It's going to take up probably 3, maybe 4 segments, but it's JD McDonough, Ricochet, Bronson Reed, Shinsuke Nakamura, Chad Gable, and Sami Zayn. So, a gauntlet match, you get one guy starting against another guy, one-on-one. And once someone gets defeated, the next person comes on out and they have the match, giving an advantage to the new guy, not giving an advantage to the guy who already had the match, stuff like that. It's going to be very, very intriguing. I would love if the final 2 are Sami Zayn and Chad Gable. I think those are the 2 guys with the most believability to win and the most story to take out Gunther. Would I hate a triple threat? No, I wouldn't. But I do believe that Sami Zayn will win the match and will challenge Gunther at WrestleMania. And will take the title. And then we can move forth with Gunther in the main event scene, but for the world title. So we'll have to see how that shakes out. But, I mean, that was a hell of a Raw, I thought. Overall, there was a couple interesting segments. Nia Jax took out Liv and Becky Lynch. I have a feeling Liv Morgan might get involved in the world title match, or in Becky's world title match with Rhea Ripley. So we'll see. Drew McIntyre defeated Jey Uso in the main event. Main event Jey Uso has like 2 wins in the main event, but he's still main event Jey Uso. Don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. Really love Drew here. I think he has to win the world title at WrestleMania. I think it's just the next necessary step. He had the pandemic title run, and we all know how, tough it had to be to do that, plus just no fans and coming back, and then, that's it. Like, he lost the title and he never got it back after the fact. And it should have been set up so well, and the world's events kind of took a chunk out of the sales of Drew McIntyre then, but he is back in full force. He's unbelievable on the mic. His social media presence is honestly unmatched right now. And give me Drew and Gunther at a PLE for the world title. Oh my God. I've been thrilled with Seth Rollins and how he's had this title, the workhorse title, the working man's title, and it eventually will be time, and he'll have to lose it, and it's fine, but give it to Drew. Have Drew face off against the bigger guys, the Gunthers, and just Bronson Reed even. There's a lot of different ways to go about having a Drew McIntyre championship reign. So we shall see how it goes. Outside of that, though, nothing too spectacular. I will say, though, and we're going to talk about the Sting match and the Revolution here in a moment. But it was really nice to see Michael Cole talking on commentary about it. And, he congratulated Sting on his retirement, of course, which was perfect. And look, Pat McAfee, like him or not, he is a really great combination cohort with Michael Cole. I think they're really great together, and to me, they're the perfect 1-2 combo for Raw. And Michael Cole congratulates Sting on his retirement, and Pat McAfee's like, "Oh man, it was great! What a great match last night!" And as soon as he even says it like that, where he phrases the match last night, like even as indirect of a mention that was, Michael Cole just like, oh, yep, and next match, and he just immediately launched right back into the attention for Gunther and Dom, which is, that's what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to talk about the competition if you're WWE, but it was just so funny that Michael Cole says, congrats to Sting, this is great. Pat McAfee's like, look, it was a great match. He'd rather just launch into how great the match was, and Michael Cole's like, hey, this is World Wrestling Entertainment, pal. Let's show. But Gunther and Dom was a great match as well. Let me not miss that. Dom is great. The inevitable face turn by him at some point will be great. He has a great, move set for a baby face. Of course, Rhea Ripley will probably turn on him because he has the nuclear heat, and Rhea is already beloved by pretty much everybody. So there's just a lot there to like. I had suggested last week, actually, that what if, Rhea loses her title at WrestleMania, Dom gets pissed, turns on Rhea Ripley, and it doesn't have to be the same night, doesn't have to be, because of the title loss necessarily, but just factors going in, including the title loss. And Dom's berating her, he's losing it, and then he says, Rhea, you weren't truly mommy. There's only one mommy for Dom. And then you hear, excuse me! Vicky Guerrero comes out as Dom's new manager. I'm here for it. It's a little fantasy book, but I'm here for it. But, I mean, man, it's going to be... WrestleMania is really shaping up. We only have, I believe, the world title matches set in stone. I'm going to look up. I'm going to see just to make sure. I do believe it's just the 4 matches. Yeah. Actually, okay, well, so night 2 guaranteed is Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, undisputed WWE Universal title. Seth freaking Rollins versus Drew McIntyre, World Heavyweight title. Both will be night 2. Night 1, potentially, and we'll find that out tonight, would be Roman and The Rock versus Cody and Seth. And then to be announced what specific night they will be, but they will be happening. Gunther will challenge the winner, or Gunther will defend his title against the winner of the gauntlet match from this upcoming week on Raw. Rhea Ripley will take on Becky Lynch for the Women's World title, and Io Sky will defend her WWE Women's Championship against Bayley. Those will be random nights. We don't know yet. Not random, but we don't know. Unknown, maybe night 1, maybe night 2. But those are all pretty set. I like that the title matches are being set up, now so quickly. They're set in stone. They're coming to fruition in set in stone first. We're gonna get some special random matches. The matches that are the special attraction matches, and I don't know what those entail. Maybe a Randy Orton and Solo Sikoa thing, but I also don't want to see that. I'd rather Orton be involved with something and then interfere in the Bloodline Rules match or something to that effect. Kevin Owens is going to be involved with something. I feel like Logan Paul is going to have a 6 or 7 person ladder match for his U.S. title, which would be amazing. And I just think that's the right move. So we'll see. We'll see what they want to come up with. But I don't know. Things are just shaping up. I know this time they'll always kind of, you get a match here, you get a match there, but they're really coming in with the title matches first, and it's nice to see that they are. It's a reflection of the titles are most important, and this is what's going to happen. It's nice to have that. So before we get into the revolution of it all, before we talk about Sting, let's do the other WrestleMania weekend tradition, the WWE Hall of Fame. Now, if you listen to the last episode of the Juice Box featuring Triple Threat Theater, Josh Cross and Donnie, where we discussed those in the Hall of Fame and why they should or shouldn't be involved or inducted. And I made a case for why they should or shouldn't be. This 2024 Hall of Fame class will be the 25th class for the Hall of Fame, which is really, really cool. And the first inductee announced this past week, none other than Paul Heyman, Philadelphia's own. He managed in AWA, he managed in WCW, he commentated in both. He owned, operated ECW, founded in Philadelphia. It was Eastern Championship Wrestling, and then it was Extreme Championship Wrestling, and it turned the wrestling world upside down in the mid-90s. They got help from WWE. They were very anti-WCW. They were counterculture. They had a cult-like following. It was must-see TV if you had TV that could access a show that was broadcast at 3 o'clock in the morning on a station you may or may not be able to get. But I watched it. I found ECW, and I loved ECW. I mean, Rob Van Dam, Sandman, Tommy Dreamer, the Dudley Boys, Shane Douglas, New Jack. I mean, I could go on and on and on about ECW, but, you know, Paul Heyman is a legend. He was the Dangerous Alliance in WCW, where he had Rick Rude, Arn Anderson, Bobby Eaton, Steve Austin, Larry Zbyszko, the Dangerous Alliance, Medusa. Dangerous Alliance is one of the best factions in the history of pro wrestling. The amount of talent there. All Hall of Famers, by the way. Now with Paul Heyman, he can officially have that distinction. He also was GM on SmackDown. I know he wrote a lot as well. Color commentator on Monday Night Raw. He was famously a commentator early in 2001 after ECW folded, and he was commentating WrestleMania 17, which is arguably the greatest pay-per-view of all time. And, of course, he managed Brock Lesnar, Big Show, CM Punk, RVD, Austin, as I said, Rude, Anderson, and Kurt Angle, and now Roman Reigns and the Bloodline, among many other guys and girls. That, you know, the Paul Heyman guy, the Paul Heyman girl, that type of deal. Just a legend. It's so well deserved, and he's earned it. I'm looking forward to seeing who inducts him. It could be a Tommy Dreamer. It could be a Steve Austin. I think Steve Austin probably is the best guy to do it. Just because he gave him a shot, and he worked with him in WCW, and he gave him a shot in ECW to really spread his wings, and then, you know, that type of character growth in ECW, it flowed once he got out of the ringmaster gimmick in WWE, and the rest is history. So, Paul Heyman, first inductee, and then the second announced inductee. This was a surprise, but it's really great. You know, Triple H has, you know, full control over, seemingly, over the creative of WWE and certain decisions in WWE, especially in regards to talent, legends deals, stuff like the Hall of Fame, and just making those decisions on who should do this or who shouldn't be in. And I'm sure there's like a board or some sort of collective group that kind of comes up with who's getting inducted and whatnot, but it's just pretty obvious that Triple H has a hand in it when Bull Nakano is going to get inducted to the WWE Hall of Fame. She retired in 1997, which is crazy. Because when I was watching her, you know, she retired when I was 4, but I recall WCW matches like Hog Wild, Hog Wild 96, World War III 95, some of her matches, SummerSlam 94 against Alundra Blaze. Her North American resume, it was pretty good, enough for me to, you know, enjoy her work, and I never really watched her in Japan, but you rewatch some of her stuff, and she hit that leg drop from the top of the cage and the top rope all the time, and she retired in 97, and now she's a professional golfer. So, hell yeah. Bull Nakano, honestly, I was discussing this with the guys in Wrestling Nation. Shout out Wrestling Nation. Can't wait to see, hopefully, some of you guys at WrestleMania weekend in Philly. But I was discussing to them the importance of Bull Nakano and Alundra Blaze, honestly. Medusa, who I mentioned earlier with Paul Heyman in the Dangerous Alliance. But in a time where women's wrestling happened, but honestly not in North America. You know, you had, look, Wendy. This is the timeline of events. to me, just coming off the top of my head for women's wrestling, in the 80s, Wendy Richter, the Jumping Bomb Angels, and then it's like managers. It's Elizabeth, it's Sherry, it's Missy Hyatt, it's Luna Vachon. It's just, there were not a lot of wrestlers, women wrestlers, that were involved and had matches at the time. And 94, Leilani Kai and Alundra Blaze have a match at WrestleMania 10. And that's great. You know, get a huge women's match at WrestleMania 10, a landmark event. But then SummerSlam 94, United Center, one of the first big events at that building. SummerSlam 94, Alundra Blaze, Bull Nakano in a one-on-one match for the women's title. That was great. The night after WrestleMania 11, they had an incredible match on Monday Night Raw, which, if you have the Greatest Wrestling Stars of the 90s DVD set, you can find that match there. That's a hell of a match between the two. And then Bull Nakano had a couple matches, like I said, WCW, and Alundra Blaze as Medusa had a couple very short-lived women's wrestling in those years. And then by the end of the 90s, it was, bra and panties matches, and they were just there as a show and not really taken seriously. And unfortunately, that was a long, long time frame. And eventually we got the Women's Evolution pay-per-view in 2018. And women's wrestling honestly could not be any better or hotter right now, with both the WWE and AEW rosters absolutely stacked with women's talent. We'll talk about AEW here in just a moment, but they are about to land Mercedes Moné for the March 13th big business Dynamite show. It's just going to be crazy. I'm looking forward to seeing her on AEW TV. I'm hoping it draws more eyes to their product as well. But just the level of talent across the board. Tiffany Stratton. I'm not going to count the champions right now. Everybody that's in it, already having a match at Mania, like your Biancas, your Rheas, your Beckys, your Nias, your Ios, your Baileys, Naomi. But look, Tiffany Stratton's coming up. Sky Blue, Julia Hart, Britt Baker, Chris Statlander, Rio, Nyla Rose. I could just keep going on. If you were to ask me to rattle off female wrestlers currently in ring, even 10 years ago, I probably would not be able to rattle off as many. And I'm looking at my computer screen, but the women's rosters are not up. I'm just looking at Bull Nakano's Wikipedia page. And just the amount of women's wrestlers that are great, not just wrestling, but that are great, is pretty staggering these days. So I'm just looking forward to seeing what goes on there with Mercedes Moné. We'll talk about that here in a sec. But just, again, congratulations are in order to Paul Heyman and Bull Nakano for their induction into the WWE Hall of Fame. Before we get to Revolution and Dynamite and Sting, I would like to mention, unfortunately, we did lose Virgil last week when we did the Sting retrospective episode with Brian Ghoulish and the prediction show for Revolution with Josh Eisenberg, which were both great. Shout out to both Brian and Josh. Thank you guys so much for hopping in the juice box. But we did lose Virgil last week, so we didn't get to touch on it. Honestly, he was 72, even though he said he wasn't. He said he was younger. They said he was 61, and he actually turned out to be a lot older than that, which is great. He's the worker's worker. He was one of the carniest of carnies in wrestling, and I mean that in the best way possible. The Lonely Virgil meme, or here, let me take a picture with you, and then I'll charge you after the fact and basically guilt you into paying. Look, that's what wrestling is, man. You gotta sell yourself. I sell myself, every day to or every time I record this show, I'm trying to sell the brand, the Juice Springsteen brand, and I'm not a wrestler or anything, but I consider this a gimmick. It's my outlet to discuss wrestling, and because contrary to belief, Juice Springsteen is not the shoot name, but it's just there's very few wrestlers now, honestly, because they're long gone, at least from that era, that are still doing appearances and getting 8x10s and kind of working people and just having that mentality in a positive way. There's a couple guys now, like your MJFs, your Baron Corbins, guys that will always want, hey, let's get a photo or like just in character all the time, stuff like that. I love the guys that always stay in character or always are being carny and whatnot. So it was unfortunate to see Virgil passing away, but I did hear that his health had been declining, so hopefully it was more of a relief. But I will say, little personal moment, myself and Justin LaBar, back in, I believe, 2015, got to spend a day with Virgil, and, great health then, and he was a Pittsburgh guy, and we had lunch with him. I'll never forget it. He came on to Chairshot Reality and did a couple of segments. He read some mean tweets from fans or other wrestlers talking about him. And my favorite quote is just how he said this following line, where somebody had said that they'd like to powerbomb Virgil, like they don't like him, whatever. And Virgil goes, "Come on, you wanna do it? You wanna powerbomb me? Powerbomb me, brother." And I just never heard someone phrase that like that. So it was just great. He's an endearing guy, a really likable guy, and it's just sad to see him go. And it's just another wrestler gone, honestly, too soon. I mean, in the 70s is pretty young these days. I mean, the fact that Hogan and some of these guys, Flair, still old, still kicking, and they're in their 70s, if not a little older, I mean, it's pretty remarkable. But let's go to a positive side of things. The about to be 65 years old the end of this month, Sting, who had his retirement match, AEW Revolution. My God. I'm going to run down the card and what happened, and then we'll talk about just the Sting match in general, and then what we're going to look forward to here with what happened on Dynamite. But I thought Revolution was a fantastic show. Honestly, one of the best AEW pay-per-views they have done ever. I can confidently say that. And to me, I think Revolution's been one of their most consistently strong pay-per-views. So shout out to them for continuing that. Christian retained the TNT title against Daniel Garcia. It was an okay match. And then a beatdown happened on Dynamite, and Adam Copeland made the save. And now, March 20th in Toronto, Money in the Bank will also be in Toronto, as a matter of fact, which is pretty cool. But Toronto, March 20th, Adam Copeland, Christian Cage, and an I Quit match for the TNT title. I still think that Double or Nothing and a ladder match is where those two need to be to settle it all, but we'll see what happens with those two. Eddie Kingston defeated Bryan Danielson. I could not be more wrong with that prediction. However, I was thrilled by the match and the quality of the match, and Eddie Kingston did it. And it was a great match. Eddie Kingston proved a lot of people wrong, and unfortunately, he got his head kicked in by someone, well, not kicked in, but clotheslined, and I will mention that as we get to Dynamite. Wardlow won the All-Star Scramble match, which, not really a surprise, but Wardlow will be taking on, spoiler alert from the end of the night, Samoa Joe for the world title next week. Big business, March 13th. So That'll be fun. A Haas fight for Haas fights. Wardlow versus Samoa Joe. World title. Will Wardlow win and hand it over to Adam Cole like Ted DiBiase did with Andre in 1988? Very well could happen, but I'm here to see how it all unfolds. Additionally, Roddy Strong defeated Orange Cassidy. Solid match. Wins the IC International Championship. So Wardlow and Roderick Strong could both be champions by next week. We'll see how that dynamic plays out. Moxley and Claudio, the BCC, defeated FTR, which was really cool to see the BCC with shoulder pads, with spikes, much like the Road Warriors did, as this was kind of a tribute night to Sting, which I thought was really cool. We'll get to the tag team portion in a bit as well. Timeless Toni Storm defeated Deonna Purrazzo, retains her women's title. We don't really know what's next, but the Mercedes Moné of it all really is going to throw a wrench into the plans for the future World Championship matches. Anything with Toni Storm, Deonna. I don't know where Mercedes will fit in, but that first feud will be huge. I'm sure of it. Like I said, Samoa Joe defeated Hangman and Swerve by he tapped out Hangman to win or to retain the world title. Great match. He defends next week against Wardlow, who won the Scramble match. Hangman, though, kind of turning, not heel, but being a tweener. He ripped a referee out of the ring and beat him up. He interjected and crashed into a referee to stop a pin. I honestly think he might have tapped out on purpose to not have Swerve get a chance to win the title. So there's a lot more there. And Swerve, we'll see what he's got in store coming up. But they had Swerve and Joe going against the Kingdom, the Undisputed Kingdom. And Swerve and Joe got the title. But I don't know. I think Swerve's still in the thick of it. I still think he's going to have an opportunity to get that world title again soon. And eventually he will, I think he'll win the title. I thought it might have been the moment. I thought it might have been the time. But not yet. Not yet. Wow. This next match, though. Will Ospreay defeats Konosuke Takeshita. Unbelievable. 5 straws from Juice. This was one hell of a match. If you want to see what in-ring wrestling can be when it's presented like WWE, but the in-ring is a PWG style, all into one production, you get Takeshita versus Ospreay. First off, whatever the Ospreay theme music, where at a point all the fans are chanting Ospreay, 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 Ospreay. That is gonna get over huge. It already got over on his first match, main evented Dynamite against Kyle Fletcher when he got the win. I love and I can't wait to see the week-to-week presentation of a guy like Will Ospreay, who honestly was in New Japan and doing other things, and you didn't, unless you watched it religiously, you didn't see that. And now it's a North American crowd. He's going to be here for the long term. Can't wait to see his character growth. He's great on the mic, honestly. He really is. And I would love to see more from him. I can't wait to see how he fits in with this AEW roster week to week. And Dynamite closed out after that win against Kyle Fletcher. Will Ospreay gets interrupted by the one and only Bryan Danielson. Could we see Bryan Danielson versus Will Ospreay on a pay-per-view? Whoo! Speaking of pay-per-views, before we talk about the Sting match, AEW Dynasty, the newest pay-per-view, the next pay-per-view, April 21st. should be interesting. I don't know if all the titles will be on the line, but it kind of looked that way from the all gold trim for the pay-per-view poster graphic. St. Louis, Missouri should be a fun show. Unsure if I'll purchase it. I'll have to see what kind of matches are happening, but I will be at SmackDown that Friday. I might be at RWA that Saturday. Triple wrestling weekend would be pretty intense, so we'll see. But I'll probably find a way to watch Revolution, Dynasty, one way or the other. And then, man, this is it, man. This, Brian Ghoulish and I tackled Sting's whole career, 2 hours, 20 minutes, give or take. We ran down his matches, the moments, the memories, and look, even leading up to the night, I was tweeting about Sting all day, all the cool incarnations of him. I was so torn seeing, the Young Bucks being the ones to have his final match, because I love the Young Bucks. I love Sting. I mean, my God. Just the memories floating through as the night crept up on us. And, I was just really looking forward to it. And honestly, it did not disappoint. First of all, they had a little vignette to start the night, or start the match. First of all, it went on last. It was the right call. Sting's match went on last. And, spoiler alert, Sting and Darby won the match. And they vacated the tag titles. We'll get a tournament. The Young Bucks are going to be in the tournament. I'm sure FTR will be in the tournament. I think it's the right move. I'm sure everybody wanted the time-honored tradition of Sting to lose and whatever. But Tony Khan was like, look, we're celebrating you, man. You're going to win. You're going to go out a champion. And that's just how it's going to be. Like, you deserve this. You've done so much for this wrestling business that who cares? You deserve this moment. And just enjoy this moment. So the vignette starts Sting at a movie theater, and it says it's showtime, and he watches clips of certain matches he was in that they have footage for. They had photos from guys like Bill Apter and other magazines in the past, where, they couldn't get the WWE WCW footage. And, man, it was just, it was wonderful to see. I didn't get choked up necessarily, but I just felt like I really had the realization of, damn, this is it. You have retirements in wrestling, which are so... You want to talk about fake in wrestling? Retirements. Terry Funk, Ric Flair, you name it. They've all done it multiple times. But Sting, who did? This is his second retirement, but he's saying, I'm going out. It's my time. It's my terms. It's a great little story here. And it was just perfect scenario. And Tony Khan facilitated it in a great way. So the match starts, the entrance starts, and this guy comes out in the United States Great American Bash 90 gear of Sting. And I'm like, is that actually Sting? Did he shave his hair? I was so... Right then I got emotional because I'm like, I can't believe this guy turned back the clock and decided to do this really bold choice to shave his head and do the cut, the Surfer Sting cut. It was his son. It was his son dressed as old Sting. And he looked great. He looked just like him. And it was unbelievable. And then Wolfpack Sting came out. His other son. And damn it, he looked good too. They both looked great. They all three looked amazing on the stage. A surreal moment. They all got in the ring. They had the match. They all three hit Stinger splashes on the Young Bucks, which I thought was a great moment. Even if it, some people were critical. Oh, it took too long. Give me a break. This is Sting's final match. He wanted it. He got it, And just what an unbelievable match. Everything happened. to where the Bucks hit a double super kick after saying, "We're not sorry, we hate you," a la WrestleMania 24. "I'm sorry, I love you" with Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair, which was great. Flair was out there. He got hurt. Magnum TA was in attendance. Ricky Steamboat was the timekeeper. Lex Luger was in attendance. They didn't show him because Luger would like to still be in the WWE Hall of Fame, which I think is going to be happening. Just a wonderful, wonderful match. And, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention it. A ladder set up in the ring, and Darby gets to the top of it. He goes to hit a swanton through the Young Bucks through a pane of glass set up on chairs on the outside. And the Young Bucks got him out of the way. Darby goes right through the thing, bleeding immediately. It was an astounding, amazing spot. And I honestly, not only do I think it worked for the match because Darby said, "I will do anything to make sure Sting goes out on top, and this is Sting's final match. Who knows what I'm capable of?" And mind you, this is a guy who's going to be ascending Mount Everest soon. Please be careful, Darby. And he goes through this glass, an amazing spot, and people were critical of it. I'm not going to dive into that. We're already, a long straw deep into this juice box this week, so I'm not going to take too much time to discuss that. I've discussed it on Twitter. This is what Darby wanted. This is what Sting wanted, and they know what they're doing. The fans know what they're doing by signing up and sitting in those seats, and they didn't care. They were putting glass in their pocket from that. So, just an unbelievable move there. Incredible spot. Made the match even more memorable. And then when Sting gets the win, I just got chills thinking about it. It was not your traditional, I won the match, I retained the title, let's celebrate in the corner. It was like a breath of fresh air, a relieving win, this weight off your shoulders of wrestling for over 35 years, WCW, WWE, TNA, AEW, carrying the torch for so many years, finally getting to call it quits on his terms, and it was just an excitement, a youthful expression and reaction from Sting that I thought was honestly kind of touching. If you watch that match back when he wins and how he reacts, it was more of a, we did this. We pulled this off. It went great. What a moment for this company and for wrestling as a whole. And I couldn't be happier to be a Sting fan, an AEW fan, just a pro wrestling fan. And I just had a great time watching the show. What a great show. What a great main event. Wow. So, honestly, Takeshita, star-making performance, I thought. Wardlow gets a shot at the world title next week. Will Ospreay is a bona fide star. He's going to have a future match with Bryan Danielson. Who knows? We got Christian and Adam Copeland going to have a I Quit match in a couple weeks. Oh, by the way, Mercedes Moné is going to debut next week. And, oh, by the way, Kazuchika Okada comes in to potentially save Eddie Kingston and instead hits him with a clothesline and celebrates with the Elite as they are now the Elite. The Young Bucks suspended and fined. They fired Kenny Omega, which, I mean, that is telling. That is something that I don't know. So first of all, they suspended Hangman and fined him for the referee beating up the referee in the triple threat, like I mentioned earlier. They fired Kenny Omega from the Elite, and then Okada is now hired as the Elite. It's rumored a multi-million-dollar deal. Okada is now apparently relocating to the U.S. He's going to be with AEW full-time. A huge coup for them to sign Okada. I'm just hopeful that it works with this audience. Like I said with Will Ospreay, same with Okada. Week to week, different presentation, and I'm looking forward to it. An audience that's not used to these guys. They're going to be wrestling a lot of these weeks, and it's going to be great matches, great TV, but I'd love to see it translate to pay-per-view buys and ratings increases and more revenue and betterment for AEW. So I do think it's there. I think it's possible. It's just going to be wild. It's going to be something to see these guys week to week and see how they go about it. How are they going to improve week to week? But I mean, just everything from Dynamite and Revolution was honestly stellar, and I cannot wait to see what the future holds for AEW. Like I said, Raw was pretty solid. Mania stuff is really coming in to clear view here, and SmackDown, of course, tonight. It's going to be pretty insane. We're going to presumably have the accepting of the tag match, and we'll get the tag match on night 1. Hopefully, Bloodline Rules on night 2. We'll see. But a lot of great stuff here soon. So, man, wrestling is on fire right now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this extended version of the Juice Box. We had a PLE predictions show last week. We had a 2-hour, 20-minute Sting retrospective. Again, I cannot thank Josh Eisenberg and Brian Ghoulish for throwing a straw in the Juice Box last week, helping out the show, but really just bantering, BSing, talking shop, and discussing pro wrestling, which we all love. So, thanks to those guys. And looking forward to more contributions from those guys. Like I said, the SIP series coming up Mania week should be an interesting episode. It's already been recorded, so that'll be something to look forward to, especially if you download this show. Unless you're on Google Podcasts, you will not be listening to it anymore on there, but Spotify, Apple, and iTunes, if you do listen to it there, please rate and review it. Give it 5 stars. That'd be appreciated. Spotify, you can also listen to the Juice Box, juicysteen.podbean.com, Juicy Wrestling Closet on Instagram. Follow the 30 Days of Wrestling Tees on there, and Juicy Steen on Twitter. Always bantering. I was on a Spaces interaction with Drew Baydala, JD, a couple of guys before Revolution last Sunday, which was always fun to banter with those guys and just chat with a bunch of people on Twitter about pro wrestling. So, I'm out of breath. It's late, but we are in the thick of it. WrestleMania season. We have another AEW pay-per-view coming up in April, so wrestling's not stopping. But and neither is the Juice Box. I'm Juice Springsteen. I hope you guys also enjoyed the new theme song and outro music. I mentioned it last week. Just some legalities. And we changed the song, and it's what it's going to be for the foreseeable future. So hopefully you enjoy it. It's a throwback to the past and my past as a WCW fan and historian. And looking forward to next week. We'll have a lot more. Hopefully maybe some new Hall of Fame inductees. Maybe a couple more matches for WrestleMania are announced. Hopefully I've gotten to see some Dark Side of the Ring by then. But we'll see how that goes. But keep up with all the socials. Follow the Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts. And I hope you've enjoyed this show. And hope you tune in next week for another edition of The Juice Box. That was The Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Make sure to subscribe to The Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts.